I joined SBU Academy from the age of 17. I spent 5 years in that academy.
Mikhailo Sakali, or Misha for short, joined Ukraine's SBU security service straight out of high school.
Yeah. In Ukraine, there are service academies, military academies that you can join.
By 24, his computer tech skills were clear. So when the FBI came to town with evidence of Ukrainian hackers stealing millions of dollars in the US,
So basically financial fraud.
it was Misha who got the job of combing through their data and mapping who was who in Ukraine.
First time I guess I heard about the case was sometime in spring 2010.
The FBI shared chat logs from inside the hacker's own network, the Jabber server we've heard so much about.
A bunch of criminals discussing malware and deployment of that malware.
And Misha's stunned by the criminals' professionalism.
Like literally the criminal enterprise with all the roles. There was a leadership, there was the malware team, there was a QA team, there was a cash out team. There was kind of a help desk.
A help desk?
Yeah, they're stealing all this money with the help of that malicious software Zeus, and we all know there's always glitches with any IT system. So these guys created their own IT help desk.
So all those roles, it was a revelation to me that the criminal organization could work a bit more like a typical legal business. Now it's a very established thing for criminals, but back then it was pretty new to me.
The Jabber Zeus crew was one of the first to professionalize cybercrime in this way. Today, all serious hacker outfits do this, but Jabber Zeus really are the OGs.
We already know the gang extends beyond Ukraine to the UK and Russia. We also know the chat was about more than work. Talk of babies, toys and pizzas is what helped investigators trace them in the first place.
There was a lot of personal discussions. It was apparent that they actually knew each other in real life, that they spent time together, had fun together.
Misha zeroes in on Tank, the apparent leader.
Tank was actually pretty well known in the nightlife in his city in Donetsk. He was kind of a DJ.
Tank played under the name DJ Slava Rich.
A photo from that era shows him in a club. Headphones slung around his neck, loud floral shirt under a pinstripe waistcoat, topped with a sharp trilby hat and oversized shades.
Beside him, dressed almost identically, is another DJ who agreed to talk to us as long as we don't use his name.
When you work in this scene for a long time, you start to see the difference between people who are really into music and those who just want to party. They don't really care about the music, you get what I mean?
So which category was he in?
He was more into the music. We just met at a club, he came up to talk about music. He was more interested in the music itself and the DJing process, like how does it work, what is it, where do you buy music, how do you produce it, how do you mix tracks, how do you perform. Those were the kinds of things he was curious about.
This DJ said Tank didn't talk much about life outside the clubs, but he was into sport.
Yeah, and he did boxing and played football. He wasn't very tall, he wasn't a Klitschko or a Tyson. He was short but solidly built, stocky, we say zbity, compact, strong.
It's great to actually speak to someone who knew him. So often these cyber criminals are just sort of hiding behind aliases. You never actually find out who they are.
Yeah, it definitely brings them to life. But it does seem that Tank could never have given up his day job for the clubs.
I wouldn't say he was super popular. He never bragged, never tried to stand out. He was a calm guy. What I can say is that he was pretty well read, interesting, and knew a lot of things. Yeah, like he was always learning something. He'd read up on things. He was really into it.
Misha from Ukraine's SBU security service got a similar read on Tank from the chats. He's a thinker.
My impression was that he was pretty smart in what he did. And kind of organizing all those people with that criminal goal, I guess he was pretty effective manager as well. He knew how to have fun and how to work, if I can say work.
Work hard, play hard, keep the mix tight, and the cops off beat. But for how much longer?
This is Cyber Hack, Season 3, Evil Core, from the BBC World Service. I'm Sarah Rainsford.
And I'm Joe Tidy.
Episode 3, Agents on the Doorstep. In June 2010, almost a year after the first Jabberzeus victims came forward, and around when rookie FBI agent Jim Craig was downing vodka at the Dacha, trying to set up an international sting operation, Ukrainian SBU investigator Misha Sakali is also monitoring the Jabberzeus crew's chat when he sees something that makes his blood run cold.
That part I remember pretty clearly because it was indeed probably the most shocking revelation out of all those chats.
I've got that chat in front of me in Russian, and it's never been published before. Till now, only the criminals themselves and a few investigators have seen this. The chat is between Tank and a handle called Guslik. They exchange greetings. Guslik says, "Zdarova, давно не видались. Общаемся, когда беда сводит. Хех." That means, "Hi, long time no see. We only talk when there's trouble." He puts a little half smiley at the end. But there is trouble. Guslik has a warning. Личности ваши установлены. They've identified you.
There is a guy who knows everything about you. He works with SBU in this case, works with Americans, and they know your real names, they know your handles, they know you are in Donetsk, so be careful.
Wow. So how does Tank respond?
He's basically fuming, and he's baffled how someone has managed to identify him when he uses a nickname. He swears a lot. Then comes some friendly advice.
Make sure to sanitize your apartment, get rid of any incriminating evidence in your places, install cameras, know who's behind the door when somebody knocks on your door.
Finally, Guslik says, "Жопу расслаблять не нужно," which, to put it a little more politely, means we need to be on our toes now.
Tank takes it seriously. He shares the warning with the group. They change aliases, but they keep using the Jabber server. For a while, then they stop. The server goes silent.
The window on the criminal's world that's been open almost a year has now shut. The authorities are flying blind.
Meanwhile, Misha sounds the alarm within the SBU. We have a mole. The hackers have an insider, and they know we're onto them. The response?
Basically, that manager just said that, yeah, I'll take a look, and that was it. So I never heard of any kind of follow-up to that.
We did write to the Ukrainian embassy in London to see if there was any knowledge of a mole in Operation Trident Breach, but they never replied. That said, this was 15 years ago. A different era in Ukraine, with a different government.
Word of the leak gets back to the FBI too. Now the criminals know the cops are onto them.
And the cops know the criminals know.
But do the criminals know that the cops know that they know? We don't know.
But we do know this. Rookie FBI Special Agent Jim Craig is back in Ukraine, boarding a train east to Donetsk. He wants to visit Tank personally.
The last time Jim Craig was in Ukraine, it was all handshakes and five-star dining. He spent an extraordinary day at the dacha of the head of the SBU, with agents from Russia's security service too, the FSB, and the Dutch high-tech crime unit. They'd all come together with one goal: to take down the Jabberzeus crew.
3 months later, Jim's back to execute the plan and to make arrests. He's hopeful, excited, for the case, but also for the experience.
First passenger train ride ever in my life, so it was unique.
Ukrainian trains, to be fair, are pretty special. They haven't changed in decades. The carriages are lined with these cosy compartments, or coupes. There's 4 bunks in each one, and there's this little table with a cloth. And the provodnitsa, there's this attendant who's usually a woman, and she brings you glasses of tea in metal holders that clink on the table as the train rolls on.
Very classy. It was very classy. I got to see a lot between Kyiv and Donetsk. I literally remember just kind of standing there, staring out the window, looking over the countryside, and at one point we went by a village where there was 2 young girls were getting water from a well. There was no electricity. I just remember thinking at that time, going, wow, I really haven't seen much of the world. It's 2010, and we still have individuals who don't have electricity or running water.
All night, Jim lay restless on his bunk. While his FBI colleagues snored through the night, Jim was thinking about the victims back home. Hundreds, thousands of small businesses and lives ruined, millions of dollars stolen, funneled through networks in the UK, Russia, and beyond. The money all heading to his destination, Donetsk.
Executing a very large cyber operation, it can weigh heavily and you want everything to go right. This was my case, but there's a lot of people involved from all over the world, so you want things to be successful. So I don't know that I would have slept anyway.
Donetsk, the end of the line, and the beginning of a reckoning.
Someone's luck is about to run out. Jim in Donetsk is just one player in what's become an international operation. Across Europe, police forces are lining up for coordinated strikes on the Jabazus crew.
It was big. It was a huge operation. There was a lot to put together because you're talking all the operations in Russia, in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And then we had Kyiv, Donetsk in Ukraine. In the Netherlands, we had the High-Tech Crimes Unit, who was helping us monitor communications during that time.
That's not all. The FBI are planning to swoop on money mules in New York, and the British police are in on it too. So many moving parts.
In London, Detective Sergeant Simon Williams is running covert surveillance on the UK suspects. We've already heard how he tracked down the gang's local boss, Mr. Pizza. Now he's juggling a whole cast of suspects, and one of his money mules is on the verge of blowing the whole operation.
I was ops controller, so my role in that is to be the decision maker around what the surveillance activity for the day looks like.
One day, Simon tells his team to follow a man who'd been seen driving Mr. Pizza around.
He comes out of his front door, he gets into his car, and he drives off to Woolwich Magistrates Court, which was a bit bizarre. We weren't expecting that.
The suspect parks his blue Volvo outside the courthouse in southeast London and heads inside. A plainclothes officer follows him in. Moments later, the suspect is in front of a judge and found guilty of drink driving.
Whilst he's in court, he's told, right, you're banned, do not drive, surrender your driving licence, and you're going to get a fine. He came straight out of court, ignored all of that, went round the corner to the back of the court, jumped in his car and drove off to the pub.
And guess who he meets in the pub? Some of his fellow money mules.
This is a delicate moment for Simon. Multiple suspects are hanging out together. He's pretty sure that they'll go from the pub to an ATM and withdraw stolen money to send back to Ukraine. What an opportunity to catch them in the act. But
you've got somebody that is by now banned from driving, who has also gone down the pub and continued to drink, by the way. There's obviously huge risk there.
So, what do? The man's been banned for drink driving and has completely ignored the court. What if he gets behind the wheel and gets into an accident? Or worse, kills someone?
Simon has seconds to decide.
In a pub in southeast London, Detective Simon Williams of London's Metropolitan Police is on the brink of a breakthrough in his case against the Jabazus crew. But one suspect has handed him a dangerous dilemma.
We had to be very careful about just how much he drank whilst he was in the pub and, make pretty on-the-spot tactical decisions as to whether we needed our uniformed colleagues to come and detain him for disqualified driving. But the decision was made to condone a bit of disqualified driving just so that we didn't compromise the whole investigation and show our hand in terms of what we knew he was up to.
But before he has too much, the suspect leaves the pub, with Simon's detectives on his tail.
He drove a short distance after coming out of the pub and went to a cash point and started withdrawing funds.
Officers note the date and time. They can now work with the bank to trace the account.
Simon can breathe again. The gamble to hold off on arresting him has paid off.
We'd have lost the opportunity to build up evidence, not just about him, but of the wider group, in terms of the money that had been transferred into his account that day and tracking that back to ultimately Coolababa and the other people in the Jabba Zeus crew.
That last name, Coolababa, we know him as Mr. Toy. He's the guy who asked Mr. Pizza to buy his son a Thomas the Tank Engine model. Mr. Toy is Mr. Pizza's boss. He's based in Ukraine, but he is known to visit the UK sometimes.
And when he books a ticket to visit the UK in September 2010, he unknowingly sets a number of wheels in motion. Simon's been tracking Mr. Toy and his wife, Mrs. Toy, who appears to be a money mule.
We already knew what their passport details looked like, and it's possible to put them on a sort of watch list. So as soon as we kind of know that they've made a booking to come to the UK, we'd have been made aware of that.
Now the clock is ticking.
Where are they going to stay? Do we have the opportunity to probe their hotel room? If they're picking up a car at the airport, do we have an opportunity to put a tracker on it, to put audio and video in it?
The resources Simon's willing to throw at tracking Mr. Toy tell you what a big fish he is. And when Mr. and Mrs. Toy finally land in the UK, they go straight to visit their friend in East London.
They're met by Mr. Pizza, who takes them back to his place in Chingford, where Simon's team are already watching the front door.
The time is ripe for an arrest, but Simon needs to be sure everything is lined up if they're going to nab Jabba Zeus's UK crew.
Coordinating, 20 arrests, 28 house searches, it's a massive undertaking.
28 addresses. Imagine the pressure.
You have to go through the door at a similar time, otherwise, the jungle drums would beat and they would know it's up and not go home.
This is a big moment for the British cops, but those 28 addresses are just one front in a much wider war on the Jabba Zeus crew.
Now add Ukraine, add Russia, add the need for every door to go down at the same moment. That's the job Jim Craig is facing in Donetsk, and his clock's ticking too.
Jim steps from his train full of nervous energy. He wants to get straight to the hotel, freshen up and get to work. The plan is for the raids to happen almost right away.
But while Jim and his FBI colleagues have spent months gathering the testimony of victims and all the online intel to drive this case, it's the Ukrainians who are calling the shots on the ground.
And when he arrives at his hotel, the Ukrainians have a message.
We're not ready.
A day passes. Same message.
We're not ready.
And again.
We're not ready. Not a lot of details forthcoming as to why, so we waited.
Jim and his fellow FBI agents speculate what might be going on, but ultimately, they're left in the dark. Days roll by.
We're not ready.
What were you doing all this time?
Touring Donetsk. Every day we took a different walking route to kind of look around.
They even got a tour of a new football stadium. The whole city was being spruced up for the 2012 Euros.
It was absolutely beautiful. It was very interesting. We got very much an inside look at the operations of the maintenance of the grass, to all the customized lighting that kept the grass so perfectly maintained and growing. And it was an amazing tour. And then just, sometimes we just have meetings between ourselves as far as what to expect when we do get the opportunity just to move forward with.
So lots of sitting around in restaurants and in hotels waiting and twiddling your thumbs?
Yes, unfortunately.
This goes on for more than a week.
We're not ready.
He must have been dying inside. Back in London, no one's twiddling their thumbs. Detective Sergeant Simon Williams is getting ready to kick in doors. He's consulted with the FBI, and everyone's agreed. With so many suspects in their sights, they can't wait anymore.
He's briefing the rapid entry teams, the officers in helmets and body armour carrying battering rams and shields. They're the ones who usually go up against the most dangerous criminals.
And they're a bit puzzled. Why are they needed to take down a bunch of cyber crooks?
Why do you need us? Have you got a dangerous dog? No. Firearms, it's just we'll need to go and get a load of other kit if it's a firearm. No, not a firearm. Okay, so you've got a dangerous offender in there that's armed with, a knife? What's going on? Why do you need us? no, we need you to go in and make sure someone doesn't close their laptop. Really? Oh, that's interesting.
And it kind of is. All that muscle, all that kit, just to stop someone from folding shut a laptop.
But Simon wants them in quickly, because once a laptop's closed, cracking the security code is almost impossible.
The whole operation relies on the element of surprise.
Just before dawn on September the 28th, 2010, it's a go.
British police hit all 28 addresses and make 19 arrests, 15 men and 4 women. All are from Eastern Europe.
Among them are the local ringleaders, Mr. Pizza, Mr. and Mrs. Toy. Oh, and that man who'd already been convicted for drink driving.
Officers also seize stacks of evidence.
Some of the premises, they were, a complete and utter fraud factory.
There are phones and laptops and a paper trail of fake bank accounts.
If you are opening that volume of bank accounts at scale, you have to be a little bit regimented in your approach, otherwise you're going to get caught out.
Simon remembers seeing folders filled with files, listing the details of scores of fake identities.
Within each sleeve, it was very organised, very regimented. You had the fake identity document used to open the account. You had the current account, bank statements. You had a credit card account, card and statements. And you had literally everything per identity, per bank account, all very neatly organised in these sleeves.
Now he realises just how sophisticated this criminal operation is.
There was one particular individual's photograph that got used in multiple fake identity documents used to open bank accounts in the UK.
And the fakes were totally convincing.
I've looked at some of these, I've had them right in front of me, and I'm like, I have no idea whether this is genuine or not.
But Simon's on a high. The raids have been a success. The UK ringleaders of the Jabba Zeus crew, Mr. Toy and Mr. Pizza, are now in custody. Their organisation taken out from under them.
That said, they're not offering any help tracing those up the chain in Ukraine.
They'd refused to really go into details about any other of their co-conspirators. They'd refused to talk to us.
Simon's raids deliver arrests, but not many answers. The gang's UK players are keeping their secrets. So now there's even more riding on the team in Donetsk.
2 days after the raids in Britain, the Ukrainians are finally ready. There are some 50 SBU officers, as well as tactical units, preparing to raid 8 addresses. The FBI's Jim Craig rides along.
It was very late at night. It was super dark, which of course I had a little bit of concern. I'm a former Marine, so I usually don't get too concerned about things anymore. But again, I'm in a very unfamiliar territory by myself, in a suit, unarmed, of course.
There's been no intelligence that the suspects are dangerous, but police in Britain did find a couple of guns in their raids.
In Donetsk, Jim is outside one of the suspects' homes, in a big van with an SBU rapid entry team, heavily armed.
Seats were all ripped out, and these guys with automatic weapons smoking cigarettes in SWAT suits. And I'm by myself, and it's super dark, and I can't speak a lick of Ukrainian, so I can't communicate, and just kind of hanging out with them, waiting for the time where they can go in.
Finally, the Ukrainians stub out their cigarettes and make their move. Jim follows them in once they say it's safe.
When you make entry on a search warrant, usually the mood is very uneasy. There's different types of excitement within the individuals who obviously you're making entry into their home.
Even trained operators like Jim Craig can't know how people will react when agents crash through their front door. It could be fear or anger. Either way, there's usually some kind of excitement.
There was very little excitement. In fact, his wife was speaking with the SBU SWAT individuals, laughing in the kitchen.
And the suspect himself
Was sitting on the edge of his couch in like his underwear and like a smoking jacket, like a velvet robe or something, had designs on it, if I remember right. One of the SBU officers from Kyiv, he spoke English. He said, "I want you to show him your badge. I want him to know that the FBI, United States, is here in Donetsk, and I want him to see that."
Jim pulls out his badge and tells the suspect why he's there. It's an international sting against the Jabba Zeus crew. The suspect, a man named Petrovich, doesn't flinch.
It had no effect. That's when things kind of started to settle in between the laughing in the kitchen and Petrovich not being concerned at all. And I was like, yeah, this, something's not right.
This is only one of 8 addresses on the night's list of raids. Elsewhere, officers are getting ready to reel in the big fish, the man they think is in charge of the global operation, Vyacheslav Penchikov, aka Tank.
First, the SBU head to Tank's parents' home. The SWAT team go in, and again the mood is relaxed. They're just chatting with Tank's parents. Tank is nowhere to be seen.
And then after that, we did make our way towards Tank's apartment. We were told to wait in the car. So we were in the car for quite some time, and they finally came out, opened the door, and said, all right, you guys can come in. And we get to the door opens, and I'm like, nobody's been in this place for a long time. Nothing was out of order. There was no mess. The bed was perfect, like a hotel. It's perfectly flat. It's very tight. The TV's not on. You could tell that they've been gone a while. The place was cleaned, and Tank was nowhere to be found.
And it's in this moment, after months of planning and coordinating and hoping, the penny finally drops.
Oh, geez, I see where we're going here. Obviously, they've all been tipped off.
The disappointment doesn't end there. Tank has got away. It seems he has friends in useful places. But there's still his partner in crime, Aqua. So the FBI turned to the Russians. After all, they had agreed to play their own part in this series of international raids that's codenamed Operation Trident Breach.
Hey, where are we at? Or we go, because we've executed Trident Breach down in Donetsk and in the Netherlands too. So where are you? And it was just darkness.
They just were giving you nothing at all. Even the people you've been drinking vodka with around that table.
Yes, even those 4 individuals that came and sat with us at the opera, enjoyed a drink and a gentleman's chat, and then over to the dacha, and still, after all that, nothing.
Frustration, anger, shame. Jim's left with a toxic mix of emotions.
He takes stock. Yes, the main suspect in Russia, Aqua, remains untouched.
But 16 months after the case opened, the Jabazus crew is disrupted. Jim's seized a huge amount of new data in Donetsk. Dozens of money mules have been arrested in New York. Key lieutenants are in custody in the UK. The group's boss, Tank, is on the run.
It's progress. But where did Tank go? How did the man who played as DJ Slava Rich slip away?
Well, I asked him.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
DJ Slava Rich, Tank, head of the Jabazus crew, one of the world's most wanted hackers.
What do I call you?
You can call me Slava.
Slava.
That's how my friends call me.
That's next time on Cyberhack. This has been episode 3 of 6 of season 3 of Cyberhack Evil Core from the BBC World Service. We would like as many people as possible to hear our stories, so please leave a rating and a review and do tell others about Cyberhack. It really does help.
If you haven't already, don't forget to check out the 2 previous seasons of Cyberhack, the story of the Lazarus heist. It's a story that begins in Hollywood and ends, for now, with the biggest heist in the history of crypto. Investigators blame North Korea and say the money's being used to finance its nuclear weapons and missile development programs. Pyongyang denies involvement.
Cyberhack Evil Core is a BBC long-form audio production for the BBC World Service. It's presented by me, Joe Tidy.
And me, Sarah Rainsford.
Thanks for listening.